Here at Be Freaking Awesome, we believe that life is too short to be anything less than extraordinary. Join us as we explore what it means to live authentically, grow continuously, and have a blast while doing it. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sammy Kinnison, here with Angela Belford, and today we are joined by a very special guest, Anna Beth Gorman. We are going to be talking about some of our favorite, fun, complicated topics, whatever. We're going to be talking about a lot about money today, and I'm excited to jump in and talk more about it. But before we do that, Anna Beth, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you, Sammy and Angela. I'm so excited to be here. My name's Anna Beth Gorman, and I am the CEO of the Women's Foundation of Arkansas. And not a lot of people, I think, know about the foundation. If you know, you know. But if you don't, there's unfortunately a lot of people who don't. The Women's Foundation of Arkansas is the only statewide foundation dedicated to women and girls' economic security. And that looks like a lot of different things. We are a philanthropic organization, so we actually do give away grants and money to programs, projects, and individuals working on economic security for women and girls. We conduct research, we do convening, we do some advocacy. Every now and then I've been known to show up the state capitol and say, I'm not a big fan of what you're doing what you're doing and how that might impact women in our state. But yeah, so I've been here for 9.5 years. And prior to that, I was actually a professional Girl Scout for many years. I worked at a Girl Scout council here in Arkansas and a Girl Scout council in Texas. So I've spent my entire adult life as a professional advocate for women and girls.
I love that. I was like, I'm a lifelong Girl Scout. I did it throughout growing up and then became a life member. And Angela and I, we actually went to the Girl Scout headquarters in Savannah. I guess it's been 2 or 3 years now. It was a beautiful experience.
It's called the birthplace.
Yes. Yeah. We toured it and it was so fun to do it together. I was Sammy's Girl Scout leader for 5 years. And then, I got my little angel pin for being it for 5 years. And then
y'all just gave me chills. I love that.
And then Sammy was an LIT, leader in training, for my youngest daughter's Girl Scout troop. So she was in 6th grade when Lexi became a Girl Scout, and she was the leader that helped them. And I don't know what those leaders would have done without Sammy, because they had no idea how to be a Girl Scout and all the silly songs that we sang and all of the things.
I think I also held the kids to a little bit higher standard at times. I probably was a little too power hungry. My favorite, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this, there was a point in time where all of the girls were chatting and talking, and I sat there with my watch, waited till they got done talking, and then said, great, you guys just wasted 2 minutes and 15 seconds of my time. I will now be wasting 2 minutes and 15 seconds of your time while we sit here silently. And then I made them sit there silently for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And the actual leader was like, dang, Sammy is strict, woo. And I was like, nope. So I think I got a little too power hungry as a middle schooler that I was in charge finally, but
that's fantastic. So, they call lifetime members and they call them green bloods, right? We're green bloods. So we're all green bloods talking about green today.
I love it.
Well, and I'd forgotten your Girl Scout background. I knew about the Women's Foundation. I had totally missed that on making this connection. But I remember when I took so seriously the training that we took when we became junior leaders, from Brownie leaders to junior leaders, and the girls were supposed to run their troop, and my co-leaders did not agree with the way how I executed that. And I remember we went through and when they raised money for cookies, I let them plan a trip. And so we had to learn budgeting. We had to learn how much things cost. They did all the research, which back then was not as easy as just getting on your little phone. We had to, go to an actual computer to do the research on, and they wanted to go to Kansas City. And we set all of that. We let them figure all that out. They wanted to go to Worlds of Fun. And they planned all that out before we started selling cookies. And those girls sold more cookies than you could possibly imagine, because they're walking around going, I want to go to World's Fun. I want to go to World's Fun. I want to go to World's Fun. And they sold enough. We had leftover money. And the leaders are like, you're not really taking them to Kansas City. And I'm like, you wouldn't not take them, would you? Are you out of your mind? Like, that would be the most horrific thing you could do to a child.
Right.
And so we had so many funs, and we still there's a story from the book, and we pull into Kansas City, and it is pouring down rain.
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh," my co-leaders were like, "So we're not going." And I go, "Oh, we're going." We went to Kmart, we bought ponchos for everybody. There was still Kmart's back then. We bought ponchos for everybody, and I said, "Every ride, what's your favorite ride when you go to the water park or when you go to an amusement park, the water rides?" And I go,
Right.
"Every ride's a water ride." And so we went and like we were going through and they were so fast. There was no lightning. And then it quit raining, I think just right after we got in the park, and so we had the park to ourselves for, like, an hour, hour and a half because nobody else would go. Anyway, we had so many life
That's
lessons.
fantastic. That's
Um,
fantastic. So I
yeah.
love that.
Well, and I was like, to really connect it, I had friends in other troops that they were like, "Oh, I love Girl Scouts. I love going camping all the time and doing all these things." Um, my mom is not a camper. She does not like camping, particularly part of it from some childhood just baggage of camping when you are in.
My
Sorry, hold
parents
on.
called it camping, and most people would call it being homeless. We camped in our station
Yeah.
wagon. So I was like I remember the first time we went Girl Scout camping with well, I had a different co-leader, and I literally said, "Oh, you bring food?"
Yeah.
And that was the first time I went, "Oh, crap. I didn't even realize I had this trauma." So anyway, keep going, sorry.
So, no, you're okay. So we didn't do camping, but we did do budgeting and we learned how to use money and we learned how to make a budget, how to plan a trip and anything that was related to money. Like Angela, you were really phenomenal about making sure we knew those things. You're like, I can't teach you how to start a fire with a couple of sticks, but I can teach
Mhm.
you how to use some money. And
We
we
went to
did,
the
I think we did a
mall.
little bit of we did some troop swaps and the mom who did some camp who's a little bit more campy, she helped us learn some of the outdoor
Fantastic. You
skills.
got to lean into your strengths, really. I mean, again, there's a reason why there's a book that's so successful about you have to lean into your strengths.
Yep.
So,
That's
Yeah, for
exactly right.
sure.
So, Angela, why don't you tee us up today? Just the
I
conversation we
will.
want to have.
Yeah, so we had the pleasure of going to a women's event here in Fayetteville a couple of weeks ago now. And Anna Beth was the moderator for a panel. And what I absolutely love is sometimes the moderators are like, "Here is my next question. Here is my next question." And it's like, okay, robot, thank you for delivering the panel questions. But what I loved is that you were practically on the panel and managed to like bring it back a couple of times to financial literacy and the and economic develop wait, you said women's economic
economic security.
security,
Security.
yes. And so I
Yeah.
was just like, "Oh, we're gonna talk about this."
Yeah.
So, anyway, I would love to kind of where does this passion for financial literacy, especially for women, like, where's that come from? And
I did. So we've talked about like I have this lifelong experience in the Girl Scout program, and very similar to just some of the things that you shared. Like, my upbringing, interestingly, my dad was a banker. My dad was when I was very young, my dad was a banker. My dad was not a very good banker. And
okay.
my dad was a banker, and I actually remember we lived in this big, beautiful house in this fancy neighborhood, and I remember coming home one day and the lights were not on. Like, there were no lights, there was no electricity. My mom's like, "Well, kids, drink up the milk. Like, let's drink up the milk because not sure when electricity is coming back on." And there is this old saying about keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Mm,
And I would tell, and I do tell anybody and everybody that, you can walk on the street and you see someone who's got, man, they look great. They're wearing all the fancy things, all that. Like, but you actually really don't know what their financial circumstance is. And
right.
Americans' relationship with money it's not good. And we're all women of the South, right? And historically, like women in the South, we are prepared for the best day ever. We're never prepared for the worst day ever. And again,
Mm.
I am a college educated white female. I had a great job in my early 20s. I had a 401k. And yet I found myself in a pretty bad relationship. And I had no idea how to get myself out because I was living with my boyfriend. We were sharing expenses. Like, and I was like so fearful, like, I don't know how to leave. And I finally like got up enough courage like to pick up the phone and call my brother, who is now is a banker as well now. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have no idea. And he's like, this is ridiculous. You're going to hang up the phone. You're going to call this little credit union that's known you your entire life, and you're going to ask for $1,500. And that is enough for a U-Haul and your first month's rent in your own apartment. Leave. I needed somebody to tell me that. And I had really the agency and the resources to do it on my own, but I needed somebody to tell me to do that.
Mm.
And when I became the CEO of this organization that's dedicated to economic security, like it really like hit me like lightning. Like no woman is immune from financial instability
Mm.
because we are not given tools. And if you have been, congratulations, you are an outlier. It is not something normal for women to sit around and talk about, tell me about your 401k, right? Tell me about like right now, like what your benefit package is, like what are your financial goals? We're going to sit around and we're going to talk about our friends. We're going to talk about our kids. We're going to talk about trends. We're going to talk about what we saw on social media, but we are not going to talk about one thing that is so critical to our long term health, well being, and success. And in doing the job that I've had now for several years, I've met some women that are in this space. And it to me, like this is a pandemic. It is a pandemic
Mm.
that women aren't really talking about this because we are, we're no longer living in a society where it's a one income household. It's a two income household, or it is a female head of household literally trying to not just change her circumstance, trying to change the circumstance of her children. And I will tell you what, statistically speaking, the financial circumstance of the mother is what will be passed down to the children.
Mm.
Mm. That's very interesting.
There's so much we can unpack.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, where do we start?
Where do we begin?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because gosh, we're on 170 episodes, and I'm super proud of us because we have talked about money a number of times, but we're the outliers because and we're talking about it on a podcast, which mm, it's very fun, and I think as a speaker, sometimes I can definitely portray that I'm super vulnerable, I'm super out there, and there are lots of things that I'm unwilling to talk about. Like, it makes me laugh because people are like, "Oh my gosh, I love following you on social media." And I'm like, haha, giggle, giggle. You don't see what I don't post, right?
Sure.
Like, you don't see the curated version that I have. And some of it is money. And there have been so many different things. So let's just assume for sake of argument that we are someone that is struggles with talking about money. What's some of the like what's a first step? Like how do I
Mm.
begin to
Sure. And I struggle talking about money. Again, like I that's where I want women to understand, like, I struggle with it. Like it is uncomfortable. It is vulnerable for me to talk about, how I was raised, how I am, middle aged now, and still I do not have it figured out. But here's what I know. Like I know that there are building blocks of wealth. Okay. And again, this is from the work that I've done the last 9 years. Wealth is not a yacht in your backyard, it is not the purse that you are carrying on your arm. Wealth is educational attainment. Wealth is retirement savings. Wealth is owning a home, owning a business. Wealth is you actually have health insurance. Those are the building blocks of wealth because when you have any or one or all of those things, that means you can withstand something happening to you. If you can get sick, you can go to the doctor. If you're wanting to get that job, like you might have the education it needs, right? You have a place to go home at night, right? If you have a business, that is a way to build and create wealth. And those are the building blocks of wealth. So it's important to think about that. Again, wealth is not a yacht in your backyard, and a lot of folks will. Early in my career, we're talking a lot about the gender pay gap, and that's a very, very real thing. But the bigger concern and what my organization works on is the gender wealth gap. And
Mm.
so we talk about different projects and things that are going to help women build wealth in one of those areas, right? And so we do a lot to talk about educational attainment. And it may not be a college degree, it could be just the accreditation that you need, it could be going to a junior college, it could be going to a vocational program. It's like, what is the education that you need, or that is somehow in your mind a hurdle to getting to the next thing, right? If it's owning a business, then what is it that you need to do to own that, to get into business ownership? And we do a lot of work around business ownership. But your question was like, what would I tell someone? I tell women, okay, if you go into your kitchen, your apartment, or wherever you live or hang out, you're going to open a cabinet, you're going to see a lot of spices, right? You're going to see the things that you need to make a recipe. Okay. Every woman needs to make friends with the following people. These are the people that you need in your personal kitchen cabinet. You need to know a banker, a lawyer, a CPA, a financial advisor, and you don't have to like know them in like, walk into their office at a point like, you go to church, like look around, like, who's a lawyer here, go to these networking events that we love to like, go like go pony up to like a woman that that works at a bank, like, hey, like you work at a bank. I'm just really like, use what women do, which is talking to people, getting to know people, and start gathering these ingredients, these resources to build your personal social capital around understanding and getting comfortable with the building blocks of wealth.
Okay, I'm going to stop you because that was 2 whole sections. But we're going to start with the building block of awesomeness. I'm like, wait, I got to unpack all this. It's fantastic. Okay, because the first thing is that when I said, how do we talk about money? And I love that you give us the 4 building blocks of wealth, because to me, you're not telling me the first thing I'm going to do is, so what's your checking account balance? You're like, hey, what kind of health insurance do you have it yourself? Especially like people will say to me like, oh, I would love to quit my job, but I can't afford health insurance. And I'm like, I have health insurance and I work for myself. Like there's a way. And I have a guy that does health insurance for people that don't get it through their company. And I'm like, call him and he will give you a price quote, because sometimes people will stay in this crappy job because they don't know how much it costs. Right.
Absolutely.
And there was somebody I was coaching actually, and she was like, oh, but the health insurance is going to cost this much thing. And she had already told me how much she was going to sell her widget for. And so I go, okay, so the first 70 of those widgets that you sell, and she could sell like several hundred a day. Okay, it's the first 70 widgets will pay for your year's worth of health insurance. And she went, I've never thought of it like that. I just thought it's going to be so overwhelming. And I was like, this is the number. And now divide it out, right? If you're going to go start a business, then how many of those units of whatever you're selling do you have to sell to pay for health insurance? So I can talk to people about their health insurance. I can talk to people about like, what kind of retirement do you guys do? Oh, do you have a 401k? Are you doing an IRA? Because even if I'm not talking about the amount, you're saying, so what kind do you have? Do you have a Roth or do you have a traditional? I'm not really sure if I know. And then you can like go make friends with a financial advisor, like you said. So this is so practical. And I love this because then it begins to build that muscle of talking about things in the sphere. We're going to walk into the room of money, but we don't have to like open up our bank account or our retirement account to be able to talk about these things. I have been thinking about it. I would love for us to talk about retirement in a different way. And because I don't intend to retire very early in my life. I have very fulfilling work. I can work around a really interesting schedule. But what I have been thinking about is the idea of, if I had a major health event that is unexpected and I wasn't able to work, what's my plan?
That's right.
Because those of us that are entrepreneurs, we don't like to talk about retirement. Even I've talked to 60 and 70-year-old entrepreneurs. They don't love to talk about retirement. I don't really want to. I don't want to sit around and be bored. But the idea of planning And I said, if I had a major health event, my lifestyle would dramatically change. I love my lifestyle. So I am now I'm on a financial goal to be able to prepare myself to maintain my lifestyle in the event of something happening. And I hope it doesn't, but I've been too close to people that are like, had a stroke at had my 80th birthday, was traveling and expanding, and then I had a stroke 6 weeks later, and life changed dramatically, and they couldn't
Nothing is
maintain that
guaranteed.
lifestyle. No.
Nothing is guaranteed. And again, that goes back to what I said earlier. Like, I hate to say, like planning for the worst day ever. Like, you don't want to
Yeah.
think about that. And as women, we have children, we have organizations we care about, things that we care about, people that we care about. And again, like if something happens, like and your agency is taken from you, your sense of
Yes.
agency, your
Yes.
physical agency is taken from you. Like what then?
Yes.
Right. I have a friend who was just recently let go from her job. And I was like, oh no, like, how are you feeling? Are you okay? And she was like, I actually, number one, I saw it coming. And number two, I have 6 months of budget saved up. So right now, she was like, I've got a 6 month runway to find a job. I'm not scrambling. And it feels incredible to
Wow.
get to be strategic about what do I want to do. And those are even those kinds of things of like, I have some money saved up for a budget that I don't have to go
Sure.
find the next crappy job just so I can get a paycheck 2 weeks from now. And I think that was a great like conversation
That's
with her
wealth.
about money.
That is
That's
that is
That's
wealth.
wealth.
wealth. That's retirement, that's savings in the bank, that's that emergency fund. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, there is again, I can't sometimes pull like the
Yeah.
exact statistic, but the number of Americans, male and female, that don't have like $300 like accessible to them. Okay, if their tire blows out, like I mean, literally that emergency fund. And your friend Sammy, it's funny, like she's treating herself like a business, right? She built up a 6 month business like
Yeah.
reserve for herself, which is super smart. That is a luxury that not a lot of people can
Yes.
afford. Once you get that, that's incredible and amazing. But again, I do tell them like you got to start thinking of yourself as a business. It's the business
Mm.
of Sammy, it's the business of Angela, it's the business of Annabeth, right? And even now I think about too, like if I was to if I was to go into business with some other person, right? I was thinking about when my husband and I were getting married, like we were merging our businesses, right?
Yeah.
And you
Mm.
like you want to be a healthy, sound business before you merge with another company, right? And you
Right.
definitely don't want to merge with an unsuccessful company or an unsuccessful business. So it's
Wow.
fun ways of like thinking about it, right? And I'm like, what's the business of how's your business doing? I mean, you're like your personal business, the business of Angela, right? The business of Sammy, like the business of Annabeth. And again,
Well,
talking to
and what's beautiful about that idea is that then it removes a little bit of the shame for me because I think in P&Ls, right? Like profit and loss statements. So, what's the revenue, what's the expenses, how much profit do we have left over? But when it is my personal stuff and less now than it used to be, but it used to just be like, oh my goodness, I don't make enough money and my expenses and blah 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 blah, blah, all the things and I because quite frankly, raising kids is expensive. Holy cow, it's expensive. And people have asked me, "Do you travel? Did you travel this much when you were kids?" I'm like, no. Yes, I traveled to soccer fields because I had two in traveling soccer. Yes, I traveled to band competitions. Like, yes, I traveled, but not nearly to as fun of places. And so, but when you think about it like a business, then you're like, oh, I understand that there are seasons, like we know the cyclical nature of our business. And so we have a mechanism to wander our way through December, and it doesn't feel shameful at all. We just manage that. We figured it out. And so I love the idea of thinking about yourself as a business. Of course, I think most people in America like you should have a side business because there's so many tax advantages to having a side business and it also gets you ready. It's like building a safety net before you need it, you
Sure. I've
know?
got a good friend of mine who she's a serial entrepreneur, right? She's got all these little side hustles, businesses, but she has a full-time job. And in her mind, she's like, I always want options, right? Like she's
Yeah.
like, if she got a call that her position was being eliminated, she's like, I'm gonna be fine because I've got other things like going on, and she wants an exit strategy. She wants options, and that's great. Again, that works for her. That doesn't work for everybody, but it's and that's a part of what's fun too. Is like it's really asking women and talking to women, and like really, you do have to build this muscle. Like I mean,
Yeah.
and again, I am not an expert, but I know a lot of experts. I'm married to an expert. I'm married to a CPA, right? I've got friends that are bankers. I've got friends that are lawyers, friends that are financial advisors. Like, I don't have to be an expert. I just have to know them, and I have to not be afraid to pick up the phone and ask a question. And again, but that takes practice and practicing that muscle. So that is something that I'm really passionate about women just starting to do that.
I do have a
Wait, no,
question about that. Oh, sorry, Sammy has a question. Go ahead,
I want
Sammy.
to jump in. Sorry.
Jump in.
I love that you say that it is about practicing those conversations and practicing that muscle. I have a group of friends. This also connects with running your life kind of like a business. We, in some ways, act as business advisors and like the board of directors for each other. And there are times where I have one friend in particular, she really hated her job and her annual review came up and they offered her a raise. And we'd had enough practice, had enough reps. And I asked, I said, how much is the raise? And she told me, and I go, oh my gosh, that is not enough. And she was like, what do you mean? I thought it felt so generous. And I started like walking her through all these things. And I was like, when you started in this position, you weren't managing any people. You are now managing a team of 35. And this raise, which is maybe a 3 to 4% raise, is supposed to like retrograde fit. Like, no, this is not a fair deal. You are not getting what you should be. And I think you need to counter offer. She was like, I should counter offer. And it was like, yes, you should counter offer. And she's like, I already work here. I thought I did that at the beginning when I got my job. And I was like, no, 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 we're going to counter offer this. And she did. She ended up getting more money, not as much as she wanted, but she started to tune in. Oh, maybe I'm not getting paid what I'm worth. And within a year, she left her job and she had doubled what her income she thought was supposed to be. And I'm like, by me asking how much is your raise, really like was the chink in the glass that helped shatter the illusion for her to say like, oh, they're being so generous with me, look, they let me work from home 2 half days a week, it's so kind of them. I'm like, no, it's not that kind of them. It is what they're obligated to do, to give you a work environment and to compensate you for the work that you are doing. You are a contract. This is not a kindness that they are offering to pay you.
Yeah,
This is
I love that,
what you
Sammy.
deserve.
Early in my career in nonprofit is not known for offering people a lot of money. Never,
No.
no. But I was so excited about what I was doing. Like when I was 23 years old, they offered me a job. I'm like, yes, yes, I'll take it. It didn't occur
Yeah.
to me. And also by how I was raised, like I was desperate just to take care of myself. Like I wanted to be in the business of Anna Beth. Like I could pay my own rent. I was not concerned about anybody else. I was just taking care of myself. But I started developing the habit of just saying yes, like, oh, and I would get a promotion here or there. So I found myself when I first moved to Arkansas, I was recruited to come to Arkansas, and I was crazy young manager. I was 25 years old and I was managing a staff of about 15. And within 6 months, they came to me like, "We're going to give you a raise." I'm like, "Well, that's so sweet of you. So nice." Unbeknownst to me, like I was the lowest. Like I was making less than all of the people that I was managing because it
Mm.
never occurred to me like to negotiate a salary. And what's really interesting now is like when you don't do that, that also sets you backwards, right? So that's where this imaginary gender wealth gap comes. Like it's gender, not sorry, the pay gap. It's real, but it's real because of things like women do not ask for their value,
Yep.
right? Where a
Yeah.
male in that role will be like, I'm going to ask for more money. Like, just like that, where we are just like, I'm so appreciative that you would give me this job. It didn't even occur to me to like try to negotiate or ask for it. And so all of a sudden, like my salary, I am behind the 8 ball on like my market value, right? So things like that. I mean, I personally experienced, right? And to this day, when I have employees come to me and they like counter. I'm like, oh, they're countering, like it's that's and I'm so happy for them. Like I'm like, good for you. You've got this confidence that I wish I had when I was starting out. So
I had a similar experience, and maybe to Angela's horn a little bit on how she helped raise me. When my very first job out of college, I started out as a receptionist. One day they were like, "Hey, we actually need you to fill in as an executive assistant over here for this department head for a while we try to fill that position. You're not going to be a receptionist anymore." And I was like, "Okay, cool, sounds great." Within 6 months, I ended up, like, filled in that role, filled in another role, finally ended up in a different department, and, like, "Here's your long-term role." And I was like, "Hey, I have changed jobs, and some of this was, like, I was temporary, and now I'm here. You guys say it's for the long term, but nobody has increased my pay. I'm doing a lot more than I was as a receptionist. What are we doing about that?" And my boss took that to her boss, and then the executive director at the time like approved a raise, and they were like, I'm just so proud that you would ask for this raise and ask for this to be compensated. And I remember sitting there being like, okay, I'm a little disappointed that I had to ask for it and it was not something that was included when you changed my job description and my job title. So, thank you for being proud of me, but I'm not necessarily thrilled that this was the scenario we had to be in. It was very my boss, you could tell it was really hard because it was just kind of like matter of fact, like, "Okay, thanks for being proud of me. I'm a little disappointed that you guys didn't take care of this on your own, but thanks anyway. Have a great day." So, I
Well,
I also
and
think I'm
maybe
an
I'm
outlier.
hearing it
Go ahead.
I'm remembering the story wrong, but I think it was an older woman, and she was shocked that you asked for a raise the first time
Yes.
and wasn't sure about, like, she felt uncomfortable going to ask for your raise on your behalf, I think. I could be wrong, but anyway, I remember there was a little bit of drama where Sammy's just like, "Do I need to go?" She had been the executive assistant to the executive director, fill in. So she's like, "I can go talk to him if you don't feel comfortable talking to him." Like, she was just super matter of fact. Also, during that same job, there was coworkers that would say, "Oh my gosh, my child, they just do not have their stuff together. Oh, they're so young." And she's like, "How young are they? Or how old are they?" And they're like, "Oh, well, they're only 28." And she's sitting there at like, what, 24, and
It
she's
was like
like,
23,
"Yes, they're
24.
so young." And they're,
Oh, yeah. I remember 28. That was, I was ridiculous then. I
she
definitely
was
had a
like,
lot of moments like that. People had no idea how old I was because I just was like, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to ask for what I'm worth. And I think I also had some luxury and some safety in that I was willing to walk away. I was like, no, I know that I bring a lot of value here and I'm
Mhm.
going to go find a different job if you guys aren't going to pay me. So,
Yeah.
is what it
Well,
is.
that makes you an outlier. It really does,
It does.
and so it's important to kind of continue to have these conversations and talk about it because, you know, Angela, what you're saying, like, I bet that older woman was uncomfortable than, being an advocate for you, Sammy, like that. That never occurred to her. I mean, again, like it never occurred to her to ask for something that
Mhm.
should have been already included or was really commiserate to the position that you're in, the work that you're doing, the demands on your time. So it's we just see that over and over again, and it shows up in very different ways.
"Oh my goodness, this conversation is going fantastic." It is so fantastic that we actually need to divide it into 2 episodes because we're going to dig deep in the next episode on social capital.
Yes, I think that so that you guys can have a chance to listen, digest, and process this first part of the conversation, come back next week and we're going to continue to unpack what it looks like to build more than just your wealth, more than just your money, but also social capital, those other building blocks. And I think this conversation with Anna Beth has just been really, really exciting. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you want to connect with her more, you can find more information on her LinkedIn. You can find her at Anna Beth Gorman. You can also go to the Women's Foundation of Arkansas website, and we'll have the link in the show notes so that you guys can find that and find more ways to connect with her, with what the organization is doing, and with all of these things. Until next time, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.